Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Out of the Blue. Hi, Dean.
Hello.
And hi, David.
Dino. Hi, Dean. Hi, Mark. Good to see you both.
So we're joined by Dean Saunders, who is the creative director of the Blue Apple Education Studio. Hi, Dean. It's great to have you with us. We've invited you along to impart some of your knowledge and some of your design knowledge to answer some of the queries and some of the questions that we get asked that are a bit more about design than the things that David and I are usually waffling on about. So we've chatted in the past and we've had special guests on to talk about photography, and we've talked about how a school goes about getting photography that is true to the character and the nature of the school and how that gets sort of briefed. What we'd like to talk about today is how that photography can be used and how to get the most from it, really. And that's obviously over to the designers when you start working on a particular project for a school. So, Dean, in this episode, we're going to sort of go through your 3 top tips for making the most of a school's photography. So why don't you give us your first top tip?
Okay. Firstly, it would be down to your composition. So usually, say if we was to start a project and it involved photography, we would want to brief that photography in. So we would take into consideration where it's going to be placed. So whether that be your website, your prospectus, or wherever it needs to be. And really, we would make sure we got those shots for that specific piece of marketing that we'd be using it for. So if it was your website and you had call to actions to the left or right, we would make sure we had dead space to the left or right. It's all in your briefing process, really. You want to make sure that your photographer that is on set, that's in your school, is actually capturing the right positioning and composition of that photography, so you can make the most out of it, really. For me, that would be the main point to start with.
Yeah, I agree. This is a real. It's something that if an amateur photographer, or if you're just taking snaps, you generally put things in the middle of the picture, or you try to capture as many things going on as possible in that photograph. And I think it's really important sometimes to just take a step back, concentrate on one element, one subject, position them, as you've said, left, right, even in the center, but focus on that subject. So then when you put it into the project, and if that's a prospectus, that it allows that space to put text over the top, or a quote, or even some graphical elements over the top of that. So I mean,
like what Andy was saying on the photography one that we did. It's about the rule of thirds. So you have to take that into account. And it's not just, let's pop the subject right in the middle of photography. Doesn't always work out the best that way. You have to take into consideration the background, what's going on in the background. And you want to make sure that you're putting your school in the right light. And obviously to get the best photography out of it, you have to take those kind of things into consideration.
And I think that really good photographers are considering those different shapes, aren't they? So, the portrait image that you'd have in a prospectus is very different to that big long letterbox image that you've got at the top of a website. And obviously the photograph needs to fill that space and still be of interest and still have the focus in the right place, doesn't it?
And it's also, if you wanted, say you had a landscape, an A5 landscape prospectus, but you wanted that photography to spread out over 2 of those pages, you'd need to be aware of that to make the image work best for you. Because obviously you're going to want to have to put typography, some copy on the other page. You'd need to have that in mind before you actually approach that briefing stage.
So point 1 is the composition, and that's really all about thinking about how the images are going to be used before you actually take the images. And I think lots of schools will sort of have lots of images and then try and fit them into whatever it is that they're creating and designing. So I think that's a really useful point for people to consider. So
I like that one.
Composition is number 1. What would be number 2, Dean?
the 100% lighting and retouch. It's really the next stage in really making the most out of your photography, really. You want to make them as dynamic as possible, and that can sometimes be darkening specific areas so it focuses more on that specific subject, or whatever it may be that you're trying to showcase. Retouch is so important, whether that be if you want to add an extra piece of photography to it. So maybe it's two images combined into one. There's many things that you can do with it, but retouch is 100% really important.
Yeah.
Making photography.
And I think that includes as well, Dean, the having a photograph, even the professional photography will take, the best lit, best composed photograph, but then need to look at some of the detail in there. If there's bits of fluff or dare say lunch on the uniforms,
Yep.
A bit of chewing gum stuck on the bottom of the shoe, need to be considering all those other elements. Looking at the detail. We did a prospectus a while back, and I remember the students were walking on a pavement, and the image was initially placed in the box on the prospectus, and the pavement just looked really tatty, and we then spent quite a bit of time retouching that to make it look, because it should be the best representation of the school in every respect, really, and whether that's inside, outside, and I think retouching those images, making them look the best they can be, is so important. I mean, it's you could apply that to everything as well, can't you? If students have got something on them, the hair's flying away or something, you can retouch those images, and don't be afraid to retouch them to make them look really nice.
I mean, and that's the thing. So you would obviously, in that briefing stage, you would say within the brief to the school, to can you please ensure that uniforms and hair is tidy and these kind of things, because obviously you want to put them in the best light. But with a lot of state schools, you can't expect parents to make sure their uniforms are completely clean, because some of them don't have the funds to actually do that. So that's where retouch can get involved. Not too long ago, I was having to de-bobble a school shirt, a school jumper, to make it look really nice, because it was really de-bobbled and those kind of things. So we wanted to make sure that was gone. So, it puts the child as well as the school in the best light.
I just never realised that was something you could do on screen. That's just brilliant. De-bobbling a jumper. You'd never think that was in your job description, would you? Okay, so point number one was composition. Point number two, lighting and retouching. It seems to me really is kind of a real attention to detail from the designer's point of view. It's recognizing the things that are drawing people's eyes and making sure that actually it's the focus that you want them to have, that you want the viewer to have of the image, and that really helps again sell the school in the right light and put it across in the right way.
Completely.
Okay, brilliant. So point number three, Dean, what would that be?
That would be cropping and position of your photography, really. So if you're aware of where it's going, it's kind of similar to the composition side of things, but it's later on in the stage of obviously populating your documents and your marketing materials. With cropping, you don't want to crop the top of a child's head off. So don't just drop the image into where it's going and leave it be, to pay attention to where it's going. If there is photography going, to sit on top of it, and obviously work with what you have. That's really the final for me, really.
And I think I'd like to add to that as well, Dean, that by cropping an image, you can make quite an ordinary looking image. If a school has taken their own photography, you can make an image look much more powerful, more professional by cropping in, getting rid of the clutter in the background. I think you can focus on some of the detail on an individual pupil, and it just provides a lot more impact to an image, as you say, rather than just sticking an image in exactly as it's been taken. You can make a lot out of it by just cropping carefully and positioning that image in its placement.
It always that then goes down to the level of photography that you have. So it's always good to have that professional photography, because if it was just an amateur photographer on their smartphone or wherever it may be, the quality is not going to be as high. So with a professional set of photography, you'd actually be able to crop into those images because it will retain that quality, which is a big thing.
I think that's some of the most effective stuff I've seen you do, Dean, is where you've had that pretty average image and you really have focused out. So all of that peripheral stuff, all the outside is gone. And you thought, well, actually, that looks great. What those two kids are doing there is a great image, but you weren't really focusing on it because of all the noise sort of around the outside. It's really good. Okay, Dean, thank you so much. So I'm going to say your 3 top tips for making school photography better is composition, lighting and retouching, and finally you talked about positioning and cropping.
Yep.
Brilliant. Okay, well, thank you very much for your time. I hope everybody has got some use from Dean's massive brain and his design ability. We'll be bringing Dean back on a number of different episodes to answer more questions, more design questions. So if there's anything that you would particularly like to know or you'd like to pick his brain, then do email in and let us know that. And until the next episode, thanks, Dean. Thanks, David.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks. Thanks, Dean. Thanks, Mark.
Bye.
Bye. See you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Out of the Blue, and I hope you enjoyed it. Please subscribe and leave a comment below, and please ring the bell for notifications. I hope I will see you again soon. Bye!